In patch 9.18, there were quite a few different changes to various mid laners. With nerfs to Akali and Aatrox, two of the strongest mid laners in the entire game, it opened up the pool to a lot more champion diversity. The current mid lane meta is something that we really haven't seen before all too much. While there are a few control mages that are always going to be good, right now the emphasis is mostly on high mobility melee assassins. Now this is because of a combination of a lot of different things, but mostly it's because assassin itemization is just very cheap, whether it's AP assassins or AD assassins. This makes them very good for solo queue because they're able to snowball a game quickly and take control, ending it in the first 25 minutes or so if they are able to get a snowball going. Now, not everything on this list is going to be a melee assassin, but that is what is strongest in solo queue at the moment. Now, the last thing that I will say about this list before we are able to get into it is that this is going to be a list intended for those of you who are mid lane mains and have a lot of time to dump into these champions to learn them to their fullest. These champions require a lot of practice, so if you are autofilled to the mid lane, I would recommend picking something else that is a lot easier to play and pick up quickly. If you haven't already, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. There we have hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses, so if that is something that interests you, then make sure to check it out. As always, the link is in the description below. Now, we can't start off this list without first going over a few honorable mentions, the first of which being Aurelion Sol. Aurelion Sol received a huge buff to his base stats this patch. While Aurelion's win rate is very high at the moment, it's impossible to tell just how good he is simply because pretty much the only people playing him at the moment are the Aurelion Sol mains. Now, there aren't very many Aurelion Sol mains out there, meaning his pick rate is going to be very low, which means you're going to have a hard time getting exposure to this character. For this exact reason, it's too early to say whether or not Aurelion Sol is really strong right now, or if it's just the one tricks being able to pull off his new kit. We will definitely be keeping an eye on Aurelion Sol, and it'll be interesting to see if he rises in popularity in these next few patches as more and more people try him out. Now, the next honorable mention is going to be Zed. Zed is a strong assassin that only gets more rewarding the better you are at him. Unfortunately for Zed, there's already 2 AD assassins that are a lot easier to play and more effective than him. Keyonna and Talon are much easier to play. They don't have to worry about playing around energy, which is a pretty hard mechanic to master. They roam better, and they have more utility in their kit. Unfortunately, these champions just outclass Zed in every way, shape, and form, which is why Zed didn't quite make the list this time around. Now that we have these honorable mentions out of the way, let's get started at our number 5 pick with Silas. Now, the higher elo you get, the higher Silas would rank on this list, as in challenger games he's one of the best mid laners in the game, maybe the very best. However, for your average player, he's going to be sitting around the number 5 spot. This is because it is really hard to play Silas to his fullest, to know which ultimate you should be stealing in which team fights and when, knowing exactly how to use all of these ultimates. The skill ceiling is just absurd on this character, and most players aren't going to be able to utilize the full champion. Even for your average player though, which won't really know which ultimate to steal in every single situation, you're still going to be able to see a lot of success with him. You can definitely master the rest of his kit, and the decision making is something that you can build over time. Once you master the rest of his kit aside from his ultimate and can play him at a baseline level, he becomes one of the best mid laners in the game, and once you master his ultimate, he might be the very best. One of my personal favorite things about Silas is every game that you play with him is different. You're going to be playing against new champions every game, being able to steal new ultimates, and you're constantly going to be learning new things with this champion. Not only is he one of the strongest champions for the mid lane at the moment, but also, in my opinion, one of the most fun. The only time that I would heavily recommend against playing Silas is if you're a newer player and you don't really know what every ultimate does yet, then you should definitely avoid him until you learn what these ultimates are doing. Now, moving on, our number 4 pick is going to be Kassadin. Kassadin is one of your classic anti-mage mid laners, his passive reducing magic damage incoming, and his Q giving him a magic damage shield. Kassadin is one of the strongest champions of the game if you're playing into other melee magic damage champions like Echo or Silas. Now the main thing to watch out for when playing Kassadin is make sure you're not blind picking it. Kassadin probably has the most counters out of any mid laner in the game. Pretty much anything AD beats him because of his low base armor. You need to be able to survive the laning phase on Kassadin if you want to be able to make use of him to his fullest potential. If Kassadin did work into AD matchups, then he'd be a lot higher on this list, but simply because he can't be picked into a lot of situations, he's going to be a little bit lower, claiming the number 4 spot. One thing that Kassadin does better than the vast majority of mid laners in the game is side lane. Now Kassadin will oftentimes side lane at level 11 for 2 separate reasons. The first is he's relatively safe to be playing in the side lane, meaning you can get free EXP and gold without having to worry about dying. The second is Kassadin actually takes towers relatively quickly, especially if you're going for a Lich Bane. Now if you are the type of player that does enjoy split pushing, you can do this on Kassadin, but you just have to be careful. Most people do sit in the side lane just to get the golden EXP so they can get that level 16 with 4 items Power Spike Kassadin. It is one of the most terrifying things in the game to see a level 16 Kassadin ulting at you and just one-shotting your whole team. He can take out one target after another once he hits this Power Spike, and for this reason he is one of the best hyper carries in the entire game. Now moving our way to the number 3 spot, we're going to be seeing Katarina here. Now Katarina is one of the harder assassins to play mid because it's pretty hard to master her daggers and her resets. However, if you are able to completely master this champion, it's pretty much impossible to hit her with skill shots because she's going to be blinking all over the place, meaning she does really well into a lot of mages. On top of this, she works really well into other AD assassins because she's able to itemize a longsword early on into the game and not be punished for it. Each Shumpo that Katarina has is a auto attack reset. On top of this, her daggers have AD ratio on them, meaning this longsword is actually giving Katarina a lot of damage early on into the game. She can use this to secure kills as early as level 3. Now, even if she hasn't secured a kill before her Gunblade purchase, it usually just doesn't matter because once she gets Gunblade, she can one-shot pretty much anything in the game. Just getting one reset off of a kill allows her to go further into the fight, healing from her Gunblade, and getting more and more kills piling up. Since most of her damage is AoE, one reset usually means that she's going to wipe the entire fight if she does not first die. Katarina by far has the most damage out of any mid laner in the game right now. The only champion that does come close is going to be Keyonna, but Keyonna doesn't have the team fighting that Katarina does, and she's more of a roam-based champion that just looks to one-shot one person and then get out. The reason Katarina is number 3 on this list instead of higher is because she's just so hard to play at her fullest. It's going to take a lot of experience to understand where her daggers are going to land and when to get that timing and positioning down properly. If you are able to invest a lot of games into Katarina though, you'll definitely see a lot more success than you might see on other champions on this list. Now one thing you do want to be avoiding on Katarina is playing into heavy CC comps. If they draft something with a ton of CC or a suppression, you're just going to get CC'd every single team fight. You're not going to be able to get those resets and wipe the fight. While you can use her blinks and her Zhonya's to dodge a lot of CC in the game, some of it is going to be point and click, for example Malzahar ultimate, and you just can't dodge that. It's these types of comps that you should be avoiding on Katarina if possible. Roaming our way into our number 2 spot, it's going to be Talon. Now Talon, as I'm sure you all know, is one of the hardest roaming champions in the entire game. Since Talon can flip over every wall on the map for free, he roams harder than pretty much everything in the game, including Aurelian's Soul. He's very simple at his base, and his level 2 all-in is one of the most potent in the game. If you are able to get level 2 before the enemy mid laner, you're likely going to be able to just all-in them at level 2 and score a free kill. So many people underestimate Talon's damage and they don't respect his level 2 all-in, meaning you're going to be getting a lot of free kills early on into the game. After you're able to base and get your team at on Talon, this is where the roaming begins. You're going to be able to push out any wave faster than the enemy champion, you're going to be able to go to that side lane and get back before missing any minions. No other mid laner can match this sort of pressure, and as a result, Talon is very strong if you are able to get these roam timers down. While Talon isn't anything special in terms of damage, it doesn't really matter because with Talon you're pretty much always going to have the numbers advantage for the first 15 to 20 minutes of the game. If you are able to play Talon to his fullest, you're able to win both side lanes and roam into the enemy jungle and kill the jungler multiple times in each and every game. If you are able to do this, then you will most likely force a 20-minute surrender from the enemy team. Now, Talon has very few natural counters in the mid lane. The only thing you need to watch out for are very high-range mages like Xerath and Azir that are going to be hard to get onto and are going to be shoving you in constantly, or bruisers that you're just not going to be able to outtrade in the early game. Bruisers are easily able to take bone plating in their runes without really suffering, so you're not going to be able to trade with them nearly as easily. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the number one mid laner for this patch. Now, I already mentioned her earlier, but here she is again, Keyonna. Now, Keyonna is the best mid in the game for a very, very simple reason. Keyonna does everything better than any other AD assassin in the game. She probably has the highest early game burst in the entire game with just ridiculous base damages, and on top of this, you can't even miss these abilities. While they can be flash, that's about the only way to dodge these abilities for the vast majority of champions in the game. Her wave clear is insanely strong, her roaming is very, very good, but where she takes the cake is her fighting in the jungle and the river. Once Keyonna gets her ultimate, it's pretty much impossible to fight her in the river or the jungle. She's going to ult you into a wall, it's going to stun you, and then she's going to one-shot you, and there's nothing you can do about it. On top of this, she usually has enough damage to grab a brush element and stealth in order to get away. This champion has very low amounts of counterplay, and she beats pretty much everything in the game right now. Keyonna's lane phase is so strong that if you make one mistake against her, you're going to die, even if you're playing a bruiser with bone plating. It's also really hard to gank Keyonna because you're at risk of dying as the jungler if you gank her, and she can just get away with her E and her W. Keyonna suffers from some of the same issues that Akali does, being very, very safe while being able to play very aggressive, dealing insane amounts of damage. The difference is Keyonna does a lot more damage, she has a lot more CC, she has a lot more utility, and on top of it, she's even safer. For those of you who have been enjoying Akali and don't want to play her after the nerfs, I highly recommend picking up Keyonna because to me, it feels like an AD version of Akali. That just about does it for today's video on the top 5 mid laners for this patch. If you haven't already, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. There we have hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses, so if that is something that interests you, make sure to check us out using the link in the description below. It is one of the best learning tools out there to improve your League of Legends play, so if you are looking to get better, then consider signing up. As always, I'm Panther, I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.